All right, welcome everyone to your Healing Journey Live. I am your host, Ernest James. I am your mental health advocate and your grief guide during this um, your journey, your healing. I always forget to say healing. Your healing journey live. And so, what we do here, we kind of just walk you through your healing journey when you're dealing with grief or things that you may have been grieving over, and even we'll get into some mental health things as we go on, because as we know, grief also affects us emotionally, affects us with our mental health when we're dealing with grief. And so, yeah, so again, I'm Ernest James. I'm your mental health advocate. I am your grief guide. Thank you guys for tuning in one more time to your Healing Journey Live. We do these every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. For now, until something comes up. But so far so good. We've been going. I think I missed 1 week when I was in Atlanta. I was in Atlanta, and that wasn't on no vacation. Even though it was fun, like a vacation, but it wasn't necessarily a vacation. It was me going to learn and to get poured into, and I went for a conference, Next Level Speakers Conference in Atlanta. This was my third year going as being a speaker, and just learning more how to perfect my skills even more, how to pour into others, and get poured into at the same time. So definitely wanted to keep going with the Your Healing Journey Live. But we took that week off. We took that Tuesday and Thursday off to be there in Atlanta to get more teaching for ourselves, more knowledge for ourselves, or for myself, should I say, so that I can better promote and present to you guys. So we're back. We're back, and like I said, as of right now, every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will be here on this journey, walking with you on your healing journey as we talk about grief, as we talk about mental health awareness, and different things that we can do to and help us to embrace our grief, as well as go through our mental, work on our mental health as well. Real quickly, I am going to drop a brief video from our sponsor. We are being sponsored by the Deal to Heal School for Living. So I'm going to drop that really quickly, and then I'm going to come back and tell you something that I got coming up that's going to be great for you guys. So talk to you guys in 1 second. Hey guys, this podcast is sponsored by the Deal to Heal School for Living. That is our online community on the school platform. You guys can go there and check it out absolutely free for the first 7 days. And while you're there, take advantage of all the free resources that we have. And if you decide to stay, it's only $27 a month. And each month you have access to a new workshop. So go check that out at the Deal to Heal School for Living on the school platform. Just scan the QR code in the corner and you guys will be able to get there. All right, we'll see you soon. All right. So that was our sponsor. Again, our Your Journey, Your Healing Journey Live is brought to you by the Deal to Heal School for Living, which is our online platform. Now, one of the things that I'm very excited that I have coming up is our Embracing Your Grief workshop, right? It's our Embracing Your Grief workshop. We have that coming up. We're going to be doing them bi-monthly, the second Saturday of every other month. So we're not going to do it in June. We're in June. So our first one, or our next one, should I say, not our first one, coming up will be in July. We'll be in July. Let me slow down. The second Saturday in July will be our next Embracing Your Grief Journey workshop that we're doing. So some of the information that I share here on this grief journey with you guys, we will go over some of that information. But it's a workshop that walks you through your healing, right? Walks you through this journey of what it means to be able to embrace your grief, because A lot of times we think we have to get over grief. Some people tell you you've been grieving long enough. Some people, sometimes you may even be hard on yourself and feel like, well, I should have been over this by now. Grief doesn't have a timeline, right? It doesn't have a timeline. It doesn't have a schedule. It takes how long it takes, right, for you to be able to embrace it, because it never goes away as well, right? Grief is something that you will always carry with you, and it just is the evidence that you loved hard, right? You loved someone or something hard enough that you still are emotionally and even mentally dealing with the loss of that thing or that person. And so that's what grief is. And as long as, it took you to learn love that person, it may take you just as long to be able to grieve, in a way that is healthy for you. And so we're taking this journey with you on your journey, your grief, your healing journey live, which is where we are. But again, our next workshop for embracing your grief journey will be on the second Saturday of July. Also, you can just scan the QR code in the corner. Scan the QR code in the corner that will take you to our Eventbrite page, where you can register for the grief journey workshop. And again, we'll be doing that bi-monthly, the second Saturday of each month, or each of every other month, should I say. So the first one will be in July. So the one in July and September, both of those are already up in on the Eventbrite page, because they are virtual workshops. So they both are already up on the Eventbrite page. So you guys can go there to embracing your grief. You guys can go there to embracing your grief journey. Embracing your grief journey live, not live, but embracing your grief journey. Sign up for it on our Eventbrite page. So you can scan the QR code in the corner. If you can scan it on the picture of the flyer that we have here, you can do that as well. So again, that's coming up. Our first one is July, the second Saturday of July. I'm not sure what that date is off the top of my head, but it's the second Saturday of July. We will be doing our Embracing Your Grief Journey workshop, which will be virtual. And so make sure you guys, again, scan the QR code. We definitely will put the link in the comments, and you guys can go there in order to sign up. So let me get back to today. Let me get this off the screen. So today what I wanted to talk to you guys about on this healing journey, right, is the space of letting go, right? Letting go and let God, if I can say it that way, right? And the problem is, a lot of times when we're talking about letting go, people think that we're talking about, or we mean, giving up, right? Like you're giving up hope, and it's like, oh, I'm never going to get over this, this way that I feel. I'm never going to get over this emotional space that I am. I'm never going to get over this mental space that I am in. And so I'm just going to give up. But when we're talking about letting go, and especially letting go and let God, we're not talking about giving up hope. We're talking about giving up the space in which you feel like you have to have all the answers. We're talking about giving up the space in which you feel like you're the one that have to fix it, right? We're talking about giving up all the external things and external pressures that you put on yourself when going through your grief journey, that's unnecessary and unnatural in some cases, right? And so I'm going to break down just a couple of things that I have written down of what it means to let go and what it doesn't mean, right? To let go, when we're talking about let go and let God, and really just giving yourself over to this journey, giving yourself over to this process of grieving, of healing, doing your grief, of mourning, doing your grief, and maintaining a healthy mental space while you're going through your grief. And so we're going to just go over some things that I have written down that I think would be important and is important for you guys. So to let go, does not mean to stop caring. It means I can't do it for someone else, right? And so what does that mean? When we start talking about letting go, it doesn't mean that I don't care anymore about myself. It doesn't mean that I don't care anymore about the person who I may be um, walking with, who I may be taking this journey with. So whether I'm the one that's grieving or I'm the one that's mourning, or am I walking beside someone and supporting someone who's grieving or mourning, it does not mean, right, to give up, or should I say to let go, does not mean that I don't care anymore, right? It doesn't mean that I stop caring. It just means that I stop putting all the pressure on myself to be at a certain point to make someone else feel better, right? And so I talked about when you are grieving and someone tells you, well, you should be over that by now. You're grieving and someone tells you, well, when I had that similar experience happen to me, I got over it in a day or so, or whatever, the case may be. And now you feel like you have to push yourself or push your grieving process or speed up your grieving process in order to make someone else feel better, right? In order to be on the same timeline, or to put your journey in the eyes of someone else, or hold up your journey against someone else's journey and say, well, if they got over it that fast, then that means I need to get over it that fast as well. And that's not the case. And so when you let go, you let go of the expectation of I have to speed up, I have to make whatever adjustments to make someone else feel better. Your journey, your healing journey is yours, and it's unique to you. And so your journey takes you as long as it takes. Your journey takes you to heal however it takes you to heal. And it's no reflection on no one else's journey, because they're not you and you're not them. And your experience is not their experience as well. Even if you guys went through the same experience at the same time, you still would experience it differently because you're different people. So when we're talking about letting go, it doesn't mean that you stop caring about how other people feel, but it means that you stop holding yourself accountable to the thoughts and pressures of someone else when it comes to your healing journey. Okay? To let go is to admit powerlessness, which means the outcome is not in my hands. And so when we start talking about especially let go and let God, when we say let go, it is to give up power or resist the sense that we have the power to control whatever we're going through, right? It's to resist the thought that we have the power, we have the control over how we feel today, how we process today, how we get up in the morning and be like, oh, I'm grieving this, or I should be over it by now, or this healing is only going to take me a certain amount of days, and so that's what it is. No, when we give up, when we let go and let God, we are letting go of the thought that we have the power to change our situation all on our own, and we give that power back over to God, who is the only one who has the ability to change us and to change our situation. So we must walk through it. We must go through the journey. We must walk through our grief. We must walk with our grief in order to process it. But we don't have necessarily the power to change things overnight. We don't. We have to go through the process. And with time and prayer and meditation, the one who does have the power, which is our Father in heaven, is able to work on our behalf to help us to process our healing and our journey as we go through. So the next thing is to let go is not to enable, but it's to allow learning from natural consequences. So one of the things that we don't often talk about, but I like to talk about it, is the fact that although we don't like to think about death when we talk about loss and we're talking about grieving, we don't like to think about death. We don't like to think about the fact that we lost someone who passed away. We don't like to think about the fact that one day we may pass away, or not may, at some point. None of us is going to live forever. At some point, we are even going to pass away. And that's a natural consequence of life. We are born, and we die. And then there's this middle ground in between those two dates. And that's how we live our life in between there. That's the time span that we have. And that's natural, right? We're born into this life. We take our first breath, and one day we're going to take our last breath. And we don't like to talk about that. But I think that when we're able to acknowledge the fact that, okay, one day this is all going to be over, and one day I may lose a loved one because their time may be over. And it's just a natural experience of our life. When we can accept that, sometimes it makes it a little bit easier to acknowledge or to adjust when we lose someone, right? Because we know that it's natural, and a lot of times we can always look at it from that lens when it's someone else, right? When we are not the one who lost someone, when we're supporting someone else, sometimes when we're the one visiting the funeral, but we're not necessarily part of the family, so we're supporting our friend or supporting our coworker or someone else who has lost a loved one. When we're the one that's supporting that other person, sometimes it's easier for us to acknowledge, like, well, we live and we die, and it's a natural circle of life, if we can use that term. But then when it comes to our front door, and we're the one that's grieving, and we're the one who has lost someone, and we're the one that's dealing with the loss of a loved one or a friend or a family member, then sometimes it's a little bit harder for us to just acknowledge and allow ourselves to learn from the situation that we're in, allow ourselves to understand that, yes, this is a natural process that we're dealing with, that everyone is born, and at some point everyone will die. And in between that time, we may lose some loved ones. We will gain some loved ones. There may be some births, and which would be a happy time. But then, there are going to be some losses that we experience in that time period. And so to let go is not just to enable or just kind of fall away, but and allow us to acknowledge the fact that there's some natural things that goes on in life, and birth and death is a part of that circle of life. And again, it's easier for us to say it when someone else is grieving. It's even easier for us to accept it when someone else is going through. But then when we're the one that's going through, sometimes it's hard for us to accept it, even though we know it. Even though just not long, maybe before we experienced the loss that we were dealing with, that it was easy for us to say, oh, so-and-so passed away, or so-and-so, is grieving this type of loss that they had. But, such is life. We're more easily able to acknowledge that that's what it is when it's someone else in the midst of that situation. But when we are the one that's experiencing the loss, when we are the one that's experiencing, grief, mental stress because of the grief, because of whatever we're dealing with, then it makes it a little bit harder for us to be the one to accept it. But we have to accept it for ourselves just as easily as we are to accept it from someone else. To let go is not to try to change or blame another, is to make the most of myself. So to let go, again, we're talking about letting go and let God, letting go and letting yourself somewhat. When you begin to let go of trying to control the whole situation in which you are experiencing on this journey, then you want to be able to not blame someone else, because a lot of times when we are experiencing a loss, we blame, the person who may be attached to that loss. Let's say if you lost someone in a car accident, you lost someone to gun violence, you lost someone to the negligence of someone else, or even something that someone did on purpose, then it's easy to blame that person for the loss in which you are experiencing. But we don't want to blame the other person for that loss, because when you begin to blame other people and put the reason why you are going through certain things on someone else, then you lose the power to work through it. then you lose the power to change things for yourself. Then you lose the power to begin to heal for yourself, because now you're putting the blame on someone else. But when you put the blame on someone else, you also put the ownership on someone else as well. So when you say, okay, it's not my fault, it's their fault that I'm dealing with this grief, it's their fault that I got fired, it's their fault that, things didn't go the way it was, it's their fault that my loved one, got sick, it's their fault because my loved one, died in this car accident. Whatever the situation is, when you put all the blame on someone else, then you also give them the power to help you to heal doing that from that thing. So if you no longer have the power to change, then you kind of put yourself in a situation where you're kind of limited to what you can do to help yourself, because it's not your fault. And even if the situation is not yours to blame, right? It's not yours to take ownership of, because maybe you didn't have anything to do with, the outcome. However, you still have to take ownership of your own healing. So when you don't put the blame on others and say, oh, it's your fault, it's their fault, it's this person's fault, but you accept it like, okay, this thing happened, but it's going to be my responsibility to make sure that I process it well, that I heal well, that I go through my own journey, that I go through this, develop my grief or walk through my grief, that I deal with my mental health, my mental stresses that I'm dealing with. When you take that ownership for yourself and not blame it on others, then it's going to make it easier for you to process on your journey. What else? To let go is not to care for, but to care about. So when we talk about this one, it's not to care for, right? Sometimes when we're going through our grief and we're going through other things that we're grieving for, it's not necessarily always the thing itself, but it's kind of what it represents. And so again, when we're talking about grief, we're not just talking about the loss of a loved one. But when we talk about grief, one of the things I always say is grief doesn't care. It doesn't care what your loss is. It just cares that you cared deeply enough, you loved deeply enough that you're experiencing a emotional reaction to that loss, right? And so when we talk about not necessarily caring for the loss itself, but caring about it, it may not be the loss itself. So it may be the loss of a job, right? And it may not be the job itself, but it will be, you don't necessarily care about the job, but you cared about the things that the job brought into your life or allowed you to do for the ones that you did care about, for the ones that you did love, right? So let's say if you're looking at a job, you have a job loss, and you're looking at it that, man, I'm grieving this job because this job helped me get to a certain status in my life. It may not be the job itself that you're really grieving the loss of, but it may be you're grieving the loss of the status, you're grieving the loss of the outcome, or should I say the income, because now it will change your personal life. It may change the lives of your children, because now you can't do as much, or you can't provide in the way that you were providing for your family. And if you're the go-to person, that everyone always go to when they need help, whether it's financially or mental health, by losing that job, it doesn't only affect you, but now it affects those who depend on you, who that job helped you to be able to care for them, to be able to show up for them, right? So when we talk about not caring for, again, we might not be caring for the exact thing or the exact loss, but we care about what that loss took away from us, right? So let me see. This one I think is important, right? So to let go is not to fix, but it's to be supportive. And I think this one is important, because when we let go and let God, when we let go and allow ourselves to be open to the experiences and the experience that we're going through, or that we are championing someone else or supporting someone else through, it's important for us to understand that it's not our job to fix it, right? It's not our job to fix the actual situation for ourselves, right? Because again, when we're dealing with grief, usually it's over something that we can't control anyway. We can't control the actual outcome of the situation. We can't control the situation itself. We can only control how we feel about it and how we react to the reality of where we stand now. And that is that process of embracing your grief and walking through your grief. And so when we're in that space, we have to realize it's not our job to try to fix whatever the problem is. It's not our job to fix ourselves or try to fix our grief and say, well, if I do this, then I'll stop grieving. If I, support this other person and I show up this way, then they'll stop grieving. If I be there for them in this way and I show up this way, or I even connect them with this person or these resources, then that's going to be the end of their grief and it'll be all fixed. It's not our place. It's not our job to try to fix the situations in which we are going through, but it's our job to experience them, to accept them, and to grow in the midst of them as we go on this grief journey. Not to fix it, but to experience it, to see how it shows up in our lives, to see the ways that it show up healthily, the ways that it show up that may not be healthy, those adjustments that we may have to make in order to grieve healthily, right? Those are all the things we want to stay aware of, but not necessarily things that we want to try to fix, because it's not our job to fix it. It's our job to experience it. It's our job to accept it. It's our job to process the grief that we're dealing with, but not try to fix it, right? So we're still talking about letting go, right? And our next point is to let go is not to judge, but to allow another to be a human being. And so this is important because one of the things that we got to let go of is expecting someone's grief to be a certain way, to be forcing someone or giving our opinion on to someone or how they embrace their grief, how they show up during their grieving process, and not just allowing them to be, right? Grief is a process, and it entails a whole lot of emotions, and there's no telling which emotion is going to show up at which time on what day. You know what I mean? It can show up however it shows up on that day, depending on how you feel, depending on what you may have experienced that day, what you was triggered by something, whether you was triggered by a memory and it was a happy memory. Maybe you was triggered by a memory that wasn't so happy, and now you're dealing with that grief that day. We have to allow people to go through their journey, to go on your journey, and allow you to be human in the midst of that journey. Sometimes you might want to cry. Sometimes you might have to cry. Sometimes you may just be upset. Sometimes you may just need to get some things off your chest. Sometimes you may physically need to hit something, right? To relieve that stress, go to the gym and work out and just really put your body through some physical endurance in order for you to process your emotions, to get that aggression out of you, right? And it's okay, because that's a natural part of grieving, right? To deal with those emotions, to deal with how am I feeling right now? Am I happy? If I'm happy, it's okay to be happy, even though you just experienced a loss. And that's a uncommon concept sometimes, because it's like, okay, how did you just lose your mom and you're smiling? How did you just lose your marriage and you're smiling? How did you just lose, a child and you're smiling? Because that may be the day that the happiness emotion of grief shows up. And it's okay. It's okay if that's the emotion that you're dealing with that day on that time. Even though you're dealing with it around a loss, it don't mean that you're happy for the loss. It doesn't mean that you're excited about the loss. Of course not. But it does mean that now that you're embracing the loss, that you're still able to remember the good times, you're still able to think of the happy times, you're still able to appreciate the fact that there was joy and still is joy, and still you still can find joy in your life even though you're dealing with a loss. All of that matters. And all of that is a part of the emotions that grief comes with, right? Again, we talk about the grief wheel, that wheel that keeps on turning. And in that wheel, there's a lot of different emotions. And on any day, you could step into one of those emotions. And that's the emotion that you have to deal with that day. And guess what? Tomorrow, it may be a different emotion. And the next day, it may be a different emotion. And that wheel just never stops turning. And unfortunately, once you get on that wheel of grief, when I talk about the grief as a hamster wheel, once you get on that wheel of grief, you're never able to get off of it. Sometimes you'll slow down, sometimes it'll speed up, sometimes it'll just roll really smooth. And sometimes you may even forget that you had such a dramatic loss in your life because things is going so well. But then sometimes that grief wheel hits a pothole and everything gets shaken up. And then you get triggered. Then you remember that loss. And you remember that love that you had for the person or the thing that you lost. And now you're feeling some type of way. And it's okay. Because it's all a part of our grief journey. And guess what? We're here to walk with you. I'm here to walk with you, right? I'm your mental health advocate, Ernest James. I am your grief guy. We're going to get through this thing together, right? Again, thank you guys for tuning in to this Tuesday edition of Your Grief, not Your Grief, Your Healing Journey Live. I always get that messed up. I don't know why. I always want to call it something else, but it's Your Healing Journey Live. We go live every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Again, thank you guys for tuning in today. I definitely want you guys again to check out our our Embracing Your Grief workshop that is coming up. Our first one is coming up, not our first one, our next one is coming up in July, the second Saturday of July at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's about 2 hours. And we go through this information on helping you to embrace your grief. What does that look like? You know, how does that process kind of work out while you're on this journey? What does that look like? And it's a very informative, and I think that is definitely going to help everyone a lot. So make sure you guys go to our Eventbrite page. Let me change the QR code really quickly. Make sure you guys go to our Eventbrite page, and you can scan the QR code in the corner, or if you can see it on the banner. Let me do this really quickly. Let me turn this off. All right, so we'll turn that off real quick so you guys can see the banner. You can scan the banner, either scan the QR code in the corner or scan it on the flyer that we have here for the Embracing Your Grief Journey workshop that is coming up next month, the second Saturday. Bi-monthly, we're going to be doing this. So we're going to be doing this in July, and then we'll do it again in September, the second Saturday of September at 12 o'clock Central Standard Time as well. So both of those, for both workshops, those two workshops is up in our event, on our Eventbrite page, because it is going to be virtual. So again, you guys can scan the QR code in the corner, or you can scan the QR code on the flyer if it comes through that well while you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching this at. So I want to say thank you guys again. Let me take this off. I want to say thank you guys again for showing up for yourself again on this journey, on this healing journey, Your Healing Journey Live. We go live every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. And again, it is brought to you by our sponsor, which is the Deal to Heal School for Living. Let me change that really quickly. The Deal to Heal School for Living. You guys can scan the QR code in the corner to get that information as well. So again, I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in. Again, this is Ernest James. I'm your mental health advocate, your grief guide, and this is your healing journey. And we're here to take this journey with you. Until next time, you guys be blessed. We will see you Thursday. Make sure you go to the website to the Eventbrite and sign up for our upcoming workshops. All right, you guys be blessed. Hey guys, this podcast is sponsored by the Deal to Heal School for Living. That is our online community on the school platform. You guys can go there and check it out absolutely free for the first 7 days. And while you're there, take advantage of all the free resources that we have. And if you decide to stay, it's only $27 a month. And each month you have access to a new workshop. So go check that out at the Deal to Heal School for Living on the school platform. Just scan the QR code in the corner and you guys will be able to get there. All right, we'll see you soon.